Away. HemelBesem. HemelBesem. It's heaven's broom, translated directly. And it's nice to actually greet you guys and say away, you know. I think about 30 years ago, if somebody said away to you in the street, you had to run, meneer. Trust me, it was probably a gangster. Probably a gangster. But that's the beautiful thing about language, you know. We don't really care about the origins of it. It's only in South Africa, I think, specifically with regards to Afrikaans, where we look at the past of this language and and for this language, you know. But for me, that's why I'm HemelBesem, and HemelBesem is a synonym for somebody that's very tall, a giant. Now, obviously, I'm not, but I'm not. I am very long. I have a very long history with Afrikaans, you know, and that's the thing about me. It's not scholastic in any way or form. It's just who I am. I'm Afrikaans. I'm proudly Afrikaans, and it's a fact in Cape Town specifically. If you speak to people from my demographic, we are proudly Afrikaans. It's just we don't know what to do with this language, you know. We don't know what to do with this language. I was at the Namibian Music Awards. I think last year is, and this dude asked me, but why? You in Africa, man? And this is how he asked me, you in Africa, man? Why would you rap in Afrikaans? And I said, well, I think, you know, number one, it's probably the only language in Africa that has the name Africa somehow embedded in the name of this language, you know? And that's the thing about this language, it's just beautiful. It comes from a big pile of mess. Now, there's two things that can happen with this. You can either sit happens or shift happens with this, you know. And I prefer the shift, because if you look at the past of everything that we utilize today, almost everything that we utilize today comes from some mistake. Almost everything that we utilize today. Somebody probably had to look after some milk thousands of years ago, and they said, please look at the temperature here, make sure that everything is fine. And then when he got there, his arm got cut off for something and thrown out and fired because the milk got curdled and everything. But then later on, you know, tasted and think, wait, we can start something, maybe a yogurt with this, you know. And then yogurt gets utilized and we forget about the mistake of the past. That same guy was asked to look after the yogurt, and then obviously after a couple of hours messed that up, and then it became hard. Arms got chopped off. The owens was haarsheid and fired. And then eventually, wait, we can make cheese of this, you know. Forget about the whole mistake of the past. Penicillin. It's an important facet of the medical systems that we find ourselves in today, but it probably came from a mistake. Somebody forgot bread next to the fire, and today we have toast. And there's businesses that is founded on this whole idea of toast, and we continue, but it comes from a mistake. Now, if you look at Afrikaans in that way, I'm not saying let's deny and forget where Afrikaans comes from, okay? It's very important that we look at that. But just like everybody that was speaking here today and everybody that is sitting here today, we are not just comprised of our past and our present. It's a combination of a past, present, and a future. And I'm interested in the future of Afrikaans because, you know what? I didn't study anything in Afrikaans, but the basic things of life came to me in that language. And it was not the standardized idea of Afrikaans, it was the Afrikaans that I knew. My mom didn't teach me love English, you know. She didn't come to me and say, oh, Simon, you're so magnificent, sweet, sensational, great, grandiose, indispensable. She said, my kind, ek is lief vir jou, ne? And you could see that she meant it. And then when I disappointed her, then she also said, ek gee vir jou nou twee klappe, you know. And she meant it. Both those opportunities left a mark on my soul that nobody can take away from me. Nobody. It was in Afrikaans. The first time I tried to date a girl, I was in grade 6. We started young that time, you know. And I grew up very impoverished, you know. And we basically lived in a shack, and then at the back of our shack, I called her. I said, Shireen, kom hier. And Shireen came close and I said, I looked at her and I'm like, sien jy die goed wat ouens vir meisies vra? You see that thing that a guy asks a girl, ek vra vir jou die vandag. I'm asking you that today. And she said, yes. Yeah. And that was a beautiful moment. And when she left me, she also didn't say, Simon, I'm going to leave you now. Sy het my gesê, ek weet sê. It left a mark on my soul that nobody will ever be able to take away from me. And it was Afrikaans. Every time I fought, it was in Afrikaans. If you fight in your mother tongue. It doesn't matter who. You can fight a Chinese guy and he couldn't understand what you're saying. But my bro, what? Say, impose my Afrikaans on him. None of those things was in the school system though. And that is why the first time I got involved in the banking industry, the business industry, the professional systems, it was a shock for my brain to read all these inlays and stuff that people give you with these beautiful Afrikaans words. It was confusing to my brain because I thought I'm Afrikaans, but it seems I'm not. And it took away, and it's still today, it's taking away the confidence of a lot of the people that I know and that I represent today. The confidence is taken away. So, in the media you will find two types of Afrikaans. It's the Pretoria stereotypical Afrikaans. And when I say Pretoria, it's not a person, it's not someone, it's not a group, it's not someone, it's a system. Someone that was decades ago. Today it's a system that's still lingering there. And that Afrikaans is a beautiful Afrikaans, it's called suiwer, pure. Just listen to that word when you say suiwer. It's like you can smell the Johnson & Johnson baby powder when somebody utilizes that language. Somebody suiwer. If somebody said, I'm hungry, or they refer to this person, I'll say, yay. I'm hungry would go something like this. Ek het nog nooit vandag iets nats of droogs oor my lippe gehad nie. Ek dink ek moet bietjie by Spur gaan annexeer. Die spyskaart vra en dalk miskien 'n karmenaatjie of 'n allegaartjie net bestel. And nobody talks like that. If you blow a gasket, they a gasket blaas, they blaas a gasket, You don't blow the Afrikaans version of that. But that is what is imposed in the media. Now, back in the day, if you look at the higher systems of the higher functions of a language internationally, okay? Higher functions of a language, they say it's education, and people want to invest in education. But today's life that we find ourselves in, education is not necessarily scholastic idea of education. The barometers of success you find in media. And when I say media, I'll say art. And art I'll put into two subcategories and say it's sports and music, and with media, music, movies, all of that. Those guys has become the icons that tells us how we should sound, what is fashionable, what is good, what's not good for most people. Okay, for most people. So, take that back to South Africa, and you look at our kids, and we look at the media that tells us how we should sound. Now, especially my specific demographic. It is a problem for us because this is the savor thing that's coming through in the media telling us this is how you should sound like. The second Afrikaans that you'll see and find in the media is the total opposite of that one. They call it kaps. And kaps, it comes through rough. It's onsuiwer. It's dirty. It's crude. It's rude. It's just wrong. If I refer to that man, I'll say, Tsai. My broer meneer, Kimba visi maruban. Away. It's always derogative in a sense, but not everybody in Cape Town speaks like that, You don't get the titi there with the kusistas. She doesn't speak like that. The caretaker at school doesn't speak like that. The teachers doesn't speak like that. The policemen don't speak like that. The pastors don't speak like that. The imams don't speak like that. It confuses our kids. So, for a child to go to a university, coming to University of Stellenbosch, for instance, and I'm Afrikaans, there's either two things. There's two things that people will say to you. If you speak Afrikaans and you're from a different area, not the Pretoria or whatever, if it's not the Pretoria version. If you speak Afrikaans, they say, my broers, it's a skolly. Don't talk that skolly language, that gangster language. That sounds very gangsterish. That's the one. That's why our kids don't want to speak it. Secondly, it will be, "Jy's van die plaas af. You're from the farm, don't speak like that." Okay, those are the two things that takes away the confidence of our kids. You can go and check. Some of my friends play for the Springboks rugby. They play for some of the provincial rugby teams. You can check when they have a post-match interview. That is one of the scariest things for those guys, okay? And you know, our people will be like, my bro, sit net at TV, I want to hear this guy speak on TV. I want to hear him. But he takes the confidence. He just now understood the science of rugby. He understood how the wind blew. He understood everything about the rugby, the way he needed to be, everything, the length of the field, all the mathematics of rugby. But him standing there in front of a mic explaining why he's man of the match is the most difficult thing. The confidence is taken away from him as he's standing there. Now, if those are the only two examples of Afrikaans for our kids that tells us this is what success sounds like, we have a big problem in South Africa. Because most people that speak Afrikaans is people from my demographic. Now, my demographic does not just say, it's not just Cape Town. Look at Namakwaland. I'm a proper Namakiend. And in the media will never portray a Namakwaland accent in an intelligent way. It's always jokes, it's fun, it's light-hearted. You'll never hear a newsreader speak in a Namakwaland accent. And the reason why people laugh is because it's unheard of. It's unheard of. But you want to tell me there's not hundreds of thousands of people who has serious stories on that side? Who survived cancer? Who was molested or something? Or a pastor or a Rastaman who wants to teach something to somebody? But he can't do it here because it's not accepted as a professional way of speaking in Afrikaans. I was standing in Woorde, and this is, people always think that I'm making a joke when I say this. But I was standing in Woorde and this lady came up to me very confident. So confident, you know, she's sexy, she's everything that, you know, that deserves that confidence. And she comes up to me and she's like, "Wat is jou Tommy se naam? You know, what's your friend's name?" I'm like, "Yo, he's forward." And I told her, his name is Rodney. The moment I said Rodney, it seemed like she crumbled in front of me. All that confidence gone. All that confidence gone. Because how is she going to pronounce his name now, you know? It's Woorde we're talking about here. So Woorde is in the Boland total. Listen, people, it's not just phonetics. This has to do with the whole psyche of hundreds of thousands of people. And she's standing there. She wonders, is she going to say Rodney? Yeah, Rodney. Is she going to say Rodney? Or is she going to say how they pronounce it there in Woorde? Rodney. Now the problem with that is, nowhere in the media is it shown in a sexy light to Brei. And there's literally hundreds of thousands of people who speak like that. Now this is a huge problem for a lot of these kids when it comes to confidence. So she's standing there not knowing how to sound sexy. She knows she is. She's probably the queen of her town. But at that moment, at that junction, where Rodney comes from Cape Town and she's from Woorde, she didn't know what to do with that name. Because if you go from Malmesbury, you go from Cape Town to Malmesbury, the letter R becomes R. If you go from Malmesbury into the Northern Cape, that R becomes a R. And just when you go through Violsdrift into Namibia, you can't even catch that radio station anymore. All you hear is... But this is what I want to say. this is what I want to say. We have to make sure that, yes, vocabulary is important, words is important, sayings and all of these things is important for Afrikaans to be inclusive, but the sound of Afrikaans also needs to be inclusive. The sound of Afrikaans. Now check here, if we make it inclusive, it could sound something like this. Check here. Don't worry about if you understand what I'm saying, just follow the music of the language. Because the music of a language travels further than its theory. I listen to Volare in Booty, I listen to everything that's out there. But I don't understand everything, but I listen to it because it sounds lekker, you know? And this could be the sound of Afrikaans also, if it's included. Check here. Kom ons kry mekaar by crazy store apparatus. Kraskarate masters, kieber, krakio, kroes, krapperig, makreise, spat gauw. Gaan ek het geestelik gees soos 'n esel in. Wat geboorte gees staan gereed, die kom HemelBesem in. Met geskribbelde skrif wat ek skryf soos 'n skrywe. Krippel jou credibility met my kruitaal. Gee het nou soos gemmer, so gorrel na jou keel. Is gremering van diegene wat hulle onlangs verbeel is. Kras maar krieke moet gekraak of gekrap word. Gee vir my 'n krou by jou kranium gaan barsbrou. Hoe gaan ek die volgende pan kan aflei? Net as ek het so kan kry, ek spreek, sy luister, preek, sy's vry, genees, sy's bly, het sy gereed vir my, hy was baie g's en krr's gewees in die rym, die rede vir dit, ek gee en sy kry. I'd like to conclude by saying, look, how does the future sound of Afrikaans going to sound like? I think if it's inclusive, you will hear more stories. Afrikaans is it's the only language, I think, that's so conservative in the media, there's only a certain way how it should be spoken. Other languages, don't worry. You know, you can speak English, Venda, Tswana, Sotho, Zulu. You can say resurrection. People don't worry how you say it, it's okay. Communication is just communication, understanding. In Afrikaans, that standardized idea of how it sounds and should sound is a problem to a lot of people in South Africa. And that's why you will never hear the music that I grew up in Afrikaans. You will never hear reggae in Afrikaans. You won't hear soul music in Afrikaans. You won't hear R&B music in Afrikaans, funk, jazz, house music in Afrikaans. It's starting to come through now because really, guys like myself and other groups, we are working hard to make people, to tell them, listen, don't be scared to share your story. And that's just the musical side of it. That's just the musical side of it. It's so important that we embrace the sound of Afrikaans in its fullness. From Namakwaland, the stretching of the vowels, to the ken and the kan of the people in PE, to the Tsotsi Afrikaans in Kimberley. It's important that we embrace it. I thank you.